What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Panels on Pages. My name is Dalibor, and today we are going to be talking about something a little more current news happening right now, and that is the possibly potential lawsuit of Disney versus the creators of, well, the families of the creators of many of their most popular characters. So the actual story that's happening, now this isn't just like a spontaneous Disney's like, oh, we're going to sue these people so they can't come after us. What is happening is that apparently some of these families, the families of Steve Ditko, Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, are suing. Well, they're not necessarily suing. What they're doing is they're trying to get what are they calling it? They've issued copyright termination notices, which is apparently a loophole in copyright law that, and this is according to the New York Times, that under certain conditions allows authors or their heirs to regain ownership of a product after a given number of years. Such efforts turn on whether authors worked as hired hands or produced the material on their own and then sold it to publishers. The Copyright Revision Act of 1976, which opened the door to termination attempts, bans termination for people who delivered the work at the instance and expense of an employer. Essentially, that's Disney's / Marvel's defense. Their defense is that this work was done as work for hire, therefore anything they made during that time, anything they made while employed for Marvel, under Marvel, it belongs to Marvel and thus Disney. And most likely they're going to win because unless there is a contract that does not specify that they were work for hire, that does not specify that these characters were created beforehand or something along those lines, because I'm sure certain things I know. For instance, there was another artist, it's either Cockrum or Byrne, that was working on some of the designs for the all-new, all-different X-Men, and some of them were not accepted, and then they went over into the Legion books on DC side. And that's one of those, like, if they made that character beforehand and said, hey, I'm coming to this book, I have this character made already, that I feel like has some ground to be like, hey, we own that. Like, you need to terminate copyright of that because it's been X amount of years or whatever. It's, again, very unlikely Disney loses this. They have all of the lawyers. I'm pretty sure they have all the lawyers everywhere throughout the existence of mankind. They have all of them. Every single person who has ever practiced law in some way works for Disney. That's my feeling, and I feel like most people are not suing Disney and winning. As this is something that is specific, like it's like a loop. It's like trying to get something through a loophole. I don't know, like I guess I don't know the motivation, right? If they are just trying to terminate copyright and say it's public domain, that would be interesting. That would be a whole lot of interesting, because that would open up the door for Marvel to continue doing what they're doing with Spider-Man and all these characters that are part of this, but also like DC or Dynamite or you to pick up a notebook and start writing a Spider-Man story, and yours would be just as valid, just as marketable as any other ones. Now, as long as you do not use anything that is within the Marvel Universe, as long as you do not use anything that is not part of that character and part of that public domain, that's where it gets muddy, right? Because if you recall 2005-ish, 2006, there was a whole like slew of characters that went in like into the public domain from the 30s. Dynamite called those, I think, the Superpowers books. Marvel did the 12, which was, I think, some of those characters were the same characters, or at least like from the same books, and they just started making new stuff. The funny thing is, I can do the same thing with any of those characters, as long as it's anything that was made up until those books were released, right? I can't use any of the mythos that Dynamite or Marvel created. I can write, Daredevil, the original Daredevil with the blue and red costume. I can write that dude. I can write that character, and as long as I make it based on the original material, I can do whatever the hell I want. I can make a whole cinematic universe if I wanted to. So that's where this gets interesting. If the families are trying to pull copyright and then they own the copyright, what are you going to do with it? Are you leasing it to Marvel so they can keep doing the MCU stuff and the comic book stuff? Are you just altogether not publishing anymore? Are you leasing it to somebody else? Are you publishing on your own? Like, is Jack Kirby's family ready to like start putting out X-Men books? You know what I mean? Like, what exactly is the intent there if that's the way it's going? I don't know all the details of the motions and the claims and such, but for instance, this is an example that they're using. Mr. Larry Lieber, who is Stan Lee's brother, rest in peace, Stan Lee, he is part of this, and Disney is claiming that Disney's complaint against Mr. Lieber, again, according to the New York Times here, contends that, quote, Marvel assigned Lieber stories to write, had the right to exercise control over his contributions, and paid him a per-page rate for his contributions. Those conditions render his contribution work made for hire, to which the Copyright Act's provisions do not apply, according to the complaint. And that's why I think they're going to win this. Who knows how deep the books are at Marvel? You know, if there is no evidence, like if Marvel has no copies of those original contracts, and, you know, Larry Lieber does, or, you know, Stan Lee's family or Jack Kirby's family, they have copies of the original contracts. If there even were contracts. I mean, like, it was a different time, you know, maybe there weren't actual contracts with actual stipulations about ownership and things like that. And even if everyone has copies of those contracts, even if they flat out say that Jack Kirby and Stan Lee and all these people keep those copyrights, who knows how long that's going to play out? Because if you look at something more recent where Todd McFarlane said, any book, if you come and write Spawn, any character you create belongs to you. Well, that's how Marvel got Angela, because Neil Gaiman wrote Spawn number 9. I'm saying that very confidently. Spawn number 9, where he created Angela and Medieval Spawn. And it took them like a solid 15 years of litigation to like figure it out finally. Like Medieval Spawn ended up like kind of was behind the scenes, and then like he didn't show up for a long time because it was like, well, does he belong to him? And like Todd wasn't going to be like, yeah, this Spawn character belongs to you, even though he's clearly very much the same Spawn. And I actually thought it was a very interesting, like, there were some very interesting ramifications from that case, because Neil Gaiman got Angela as his character, sold it to Marvel immediately, and Angela was worked into the Thor mythos. Similar outfits, similar costumes, similar weaponry, but you lost the Spawn imagery, the earrings and the badges and things like that she had her, like, victory trophies. She was no longer an angel from heaven hunting down Hellspawn. She was one of the Asgardian royal family who was outcast and sent to live in the secret 10th kingdom where angels live. I mean, there's really no way around that. It's people with wings. And she was an outcast there because she had no wings. So her whole character history changed. And so she's not at all the Angela from the Spawn books, but like that character existed. And all the subsequent characters existed. And more recently what happened is that there was a crossover, Arya. It was an Arya-Angela crossover that came out 97, I think. And there was a recent book that came out that was like a new Arya book. And I was like, oh shit, wow, Jay Ancelotto's actually like doing more stuff with Arya. I thought that was super cool. Super excited for it. I really liked the like, just the whole universe. His style was very, like, he had like a really ethereal kind of style of art. He did digital colors on pencils before anybody else did. So that gave it a very unique look. And it's just like a really cool series. I really liked the Arya series. So when I saw there was a new Arya book, I was like, hey, I'm down for this. Let's do this. And then I flipped through it and I was like, these pages look very, very familiar. What they did is they went through and took the Arya-Angela crossover. It's a 2-issue crossover. And just repainted it to eliminate all the Angela imagery. This one, in this version, this was just an angel from heaven, some angel from heaven. That was it. I was like, that's like, what a weird way to like recapitalize on an old thing. But I was like, why the hell not, right? You modify some characters, modify a little detail here and there. You know, there was a shot of Angela and the rest of the angelic host, like the huntresses. They just repainted them all and they gave it a different story and different details. And I was like, that's actually kind of an interesting take, because like there are a lot of crossovers from the 90s, like wild crossovers from the 90s, where like you could republish it. Angela, I'm pretty sure crossed over with quite a few characters, and like if you just republish those and say this is how it actually happened. But back to our original point, the Disney countersuit, obviously, it was always going to happen. There was never, there is no universe, there is no multiverse timeline in which Disney was like, you guys are right. You could have these rights. You could have, we're going to drop the copyrights on them. No big deal. There's not a universe in which that happened. Disney, if you, spoilers for the most recent episode of What If, Disney is that Ultron that showed up at the end. Just like ultra powerful, crossing dimensions. Like, they are the one. Like, they are the fucking monster in the shadows. There is no universe in which they give up these rights. It's the same way that they are, I'm willing to bet, they are 100% trying to figure out how to justify just straight up paying off Sony to have all the Spider-Man rights back. I guarantee you there are 2 to 5 people in a room somewhere. Their weekly job, every single week, 40 hours a week, if not more, is to figure out a way to justify the amount of money they would need. Their only job is to justify the amount of money they would need to just throw at Sony to be like, give it. Either just Spider-Man or the entire film division, because that was kind of up for grabs for a hot second. Another thing that I want to talk about here is kind of my position on this whole subject. I've been thinking about this for a couple days now. Ever since this kind of started flowing through my newsfeed, I've been thinking about how I feel about this. And to me, because like somebody brought up, Professor Neil on TikTok, love his content. He's got really interesting takes on stuff. He brought up the possibility of these characters going in, like he said, that if the creator dies, the property should go into public domain. And I was like, I don't know how I feel about that, right? I don't know. Let's say one of my characters, one of my books or whatever, just goes huge. And let's pretend this is a universe where I have children, let's say. Like, I have family, but let's say I have children. Like, I have a generational thing, and I have children, and they would inherit my ownership of said property. If I die, why should they be robbed of owning, like, of getting my inheritance? Like, I understand taxes and all those things, and like anything that has monetary value, I understand there being an inheritance tax. Sure. But like, if I own an intellectual property, if I own a design of something, if I own the naming of something, whatever, like, that should get taken away from them as soon as I die? That doesn't seem right to me. That doesn't seem right to me at all. Now, I would say that such a thing could be, like, I could consider that a good alternative if, let's say, I have children, but they have no interest in pursuing anything creative. If let's say they get those rights, and if they do not, like, it kind of goes like the film rights route, right? When was it, Fox had Daredevil for ages, and then they were like, we're just not going to make another Daredevil movie, and they just reverted back to Marvel, right? I say, as a creator, I own those rights. My children get those rights, and if they do not produce something, let's say within 5, maybe 10 years, give them 10 years to try to like understand the whole thing. Within 10 years, if they do not begin the production of something based on that work, using that whatever design or whatever it is, if they do not go into that, yeah, why the hell not? Because why keep that away from people, right? Why keep, let's say I write a great book, spy thriller, whatever, new James Bond, like top level, people love it, get a couple movies out of it, whatever, and then my children don't want to write anything. They don't want to create anything. They don't want to be part of the business. They want to be lawyers, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. They want to be something else. Like, if people loved the work, why shouldn't they be allowed to just get more of it? Like, I feel that way about certain things that are gone and have not been around for a long time. Mighty Max was one of my favorite cartoons. I would love to see like an updated, more adult, or like he grows up and he's a teenager. He's got like, he's called again. Like, there's a whole, like, there are so many possibilities in the Mighty Max universe as far as like what to do with that character, and just with the hat. Fuck, it could be an anthology. One season, now it's a show apparently. Let's say it's a show, or like whatever, comics. Somebody gets the hat, and they have to do a specific thing. Somebody else gets the hat at the end of the season, or the hat like flies off at the end of the season once the bad guy's been defeated. And then it's like, I would read the shit out of that. I would watch the shit out of that. But like, that's under wraps somewhere under fucking, I think MGM owns that. Same thing with SWAT Cats. Like right now, the creators of SWAT Cats are having the fucking hardest time. Granted, they own the fucking rights. They own the IP, but like the distribution is under, I think it's under MGM as well. Like I think there are other companies involved. So like there is a company basically saying, nah, we're not going to make anything off of that. And then it's like these guys have to sell this idea like from the ground up to someone else. And if no one wants it, I mean, let's call it another 10 years. Let's say they were working on this 5 years ago when they did the Kickstarter. So 15 years. I mean, let me make a comic. Let me write a novel. Let me start an animated series if I've got the chops or the people or whatever. Like, y'all ain't doing shit with it. I don't know. Like, I feel like there's something to that. And you could always have like, oh, well, this is like the real shit and this is like the knockoff shit. That we already have that. Like, I mean, hell, Disney is like all the Cinderella shit, right? Well, I just watched Cinderella on Amazon. Like, Cinderella doesn't, as a character, doesn't belong to anyone. I still think Brandy did it better, but like the new one's not bad. But why can't we have it that way, right? This is a character, like a character and a concept that exists, and then whoever wants to fucking make something out of it can. Robin Hood is widely fucking used. Like, people make Robin Hood movies every 10 years. Like, there just is a new Robin Hood movie or a new TV show. Nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm perfectly okay with that. There should be. Like, it's an interesting world to me. I want to see more of that shit. Not for nothing, there is a game. There's a Robin Hood game that we've been working on. You know what I'm saying? It's been something. We started, we got some play test demos. We're developing the world. Like it's a cool universe. Now James Bond is the exact opposite of that, right? So they have continued to make James Bond. So to me, like, yeah, cool. Whoever owns that currently can keep fucking owning that. Who gives a shit? Because they keep making shit. Like, if you are a James Bond fan, you have had James Bond shit for the last fucking 50, 60, 80 years. Like, you've had James Bond shit. But if you're a Sherlock fan, right? If you're like Sherlock Holmes fan, for a long time, you didn't. Yeah, like you had a little thing here, a little thing there. There is like the ongoing series of novels, but then like the original books went to public domain, so then we got a bunch more stuff. We got a lot of really cool different interpretations. I prefer the BBC one, but like my cousin Hottest loves Elementary. I was a huge fan of Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. Don't at me. Sherlock Holmes in the 22nd century. Go watch it. But like, if someone wanted to do, like, I mean, they did Enola Holmes, right? That's a completely different take on things. All of these, but even then, there was the little detail, right? Oh, well, he wasn't emotional. He wasn't emotional in the original books, and therefore, like, him having like supportive emotions towards this young girl. Do you see like how people try to just like maintain that grip on that property? Who fucking cares? Like, oh, he was not like. So, as a human being, you just assumed he had no emotions? I don't think, like, anybody reading those first, however many novels are in the public domain, I don't think anyone reading those is like, yeah, definitely a guy with no emotions. Like, this is where the copyright shit kind of gets weird for me. I think the Disney thing is gonna probably set a really bad precedent. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to kind of shut down the steam for anyone talking a different game, anyone trying to get rights or whatever. But I think the conversation needs to be in the concept of, hey, if you created this thing and published it, right, it's out there, people can consume it, and then you just don't make anything. I think that, like, I think it's right now, I think it's like 55 or 70 years for public domain. Insane to me. Like, Marvel currently owns, in turn Disney, they currently own a whole slew of books and characters, the entire Ultraverse, the entire Malibu Comics lineup from the early 90s. They own all that shit. They have done nothing with it. So for me, oh, it's been 25 years since you've touched that universe. I'm going to make a new Ultra Force comic. What are you going to do to stop me? You know what I mean? Like, what should you be able to do to stop me? Oh, I own that. I mean, like, it's kind of like the same idea as hoarding wealth, right? If you just have a shit ton of money in a bank account, yeah, do something with it, or it's going to need to get divvied up. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what I've been thinking. That's kind of where my brain's been going with the eat the rich and redistribution of wealth. If you have $200 million in the bank, at a certain point, that should start getting taxed heavier and heavier to pay for like public services. Because you are just holding money for the sake of holding money. And that's obscene to me. Like, I'm a person that somebody asked me recently, oh, what would you do if you got $1 billion? And I was like, boom, 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 boom. Here are my plans. Because same thing for me. If they were like, oh, X-Men is now in public domain, I am ready. I have 4 stories. I would find a fucking artist. We would be putting this shit out ASAP. You know what I mean? Like, I'm ready for X-Men to be public domain because I'm ready to have my own X-Men universe. I'm perfectly ready for that. But also within my own argument, right? Disney saying, hey, no, like, we make these comics, we make these movies, we make these cartoons. Yeah, they've been using the property. So to me, they are pursuing the property and doing justice to it. They're not just stockpiling it. There are some characters and some things that they own that they do stockpile. And like, I'm ready to do an Ultra Force comic. You know what I mean? Like, but like, Spider-Man? Like, Spider-Man's been around. There's been no point. I actually think there's been absolutely no point in which Spider-Man was not actively being produced in comic book, cartoon, or film format. There is no point in 90 years. Something to be said about that. 60 years, whatever. There's something to be said about that. I think, like, there are people, oh, if you're on Disney's side, you're on the wrong side. But like, why? What are they going to do with it? What are they going to do with it? Like, what's the family going to do with it? Are they going to produce an MCU film? Because they're not going to. And then, oh, this thing that we've been enjoying, this thing that has employed thousands of people, gotten us some of the best entertainment we've had in ages. So what? They're not going to make those MCU movies, and then Marvel has to reshuffle this whole thing. They have to bring out characters that aren't under this. So then it's, oh, okay, now your headline character is no longer Hulk because he belongs to Stan Lee, and you can't make a Hulk movie, and you can't make a She-Hulk show. And now where are we going now? Where are we going now? Oh, we're pushing further forward. Yeah, Dazzler movie, let's go. Dazzler, right? Let's do a Dazzler movie. That's what people are looking for. Like, at some point, like, I guess, again, it goes back to, I don't know what the family's interests are. I don't know what the family's goals are with having this done, having the copyright protection dropped, having the copyrights terminated. Because to me, that sounds like you're putting it in public domain. You're not like bringing it, you're not like reverting copyright to the owner. You're just terminating copyright on something. And terminating copyright on something, to me, sounds like it no longer belongs to anyone. At which point, it's up for fucking grabs. At which point, DC does get... Sideways just gets spider powers. And that's... he just is Spider-Man at that point. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense to... Like, it doesn't make sense why they would be doing this. Like, if they were suing for bigger cuts, more money, like, they're owed, like, Stan Lee's family should be set for the rest of, like, as long as Spider-Man movies are produced, X-Men movies are produced, Iron Man movies are produced, as long as those films are produced, all of the creators' families should be set. That's how I see it. Oh, okay, hey, we made $1 billion with this new Avengers film. Here's $1 million to your family. I bet you that makes their lives a lot easier. Doesn't matter where they're at, what level of life they're at. You know, like, I don't believe Stan Lee's family is just living it up lavish. You know what I mean? I don't think they're flush. I'm saying if they were asking for money, recognition, whatever, all those things, I'm with that. I'm 100% with that. But if they just want the copyrights terminated, for what? Like, for what? Like, if they're asking for it to be reverted back, then what are they going to do with it? Right? What is Steve Ditko's family going to do with Spider-Man rights? Like, what is that going to mean with those designs? Are they going to start a merch shop? Oh, official Spider-Man merch? Like, what are they going to do? Because if it's not, make comics, make movies, and like all of the things that people want from it, make cartoons. If they're not going to do those things, I don't want them to win. If their goal is to revert the rights to the original creators and not produce entertainment of those characters, I do not want them to win. It's not that I want Disney to win. Disney's going to win, but I don't want Disney to win. I just want to be entertained. Like, I think people need to get paid equally. I think people need to get paid properly. I think people need to get their cut. I think if you wrote a story for Marvel as work for hire and it says so in your contract and you didn't in 2006 when Marvel films were already being made on the big screen and making hundreds of millions of dollars, and you didn't include a film clause in your contract, that's a you problem, Brubaker. Like, I'm sorry. He got a cameo in Winter Soldier, and he's like, "Oh, my SAG royalties are higher than any checks that Marvel sent me for that story." Good, you're welcome for the free money, because you wouldn't have been in that movie if you had nothing to do with it. Like, come on. Anyway, jeez. My point is, this has been a ridiculously long video, unfortunately. Just to drive this point home. If they want the rights to make their own Spider-Man shit, cool. It's gonna be really, Marvel's gonna have to do like another fucking Secret Wars, like to reshuffle the whole fucking universe again and only have the characters that they own, I guess. And then we have to, there was never a Spider-Man. Like, I guess everybody that hated Dan Slott's run or JMS's run will get their wish. They never happened, motherfucker. Like, fucking stupid. But at the same time, then it's like, if they just want them to own them and not to make shit, go fuck yourself. Like, I want to be entertained. I like Spider-Man stories. I like Avenger stories, Iron Man stories. All of it. I like it. It's my shit. So, but if it's public domain, I'm 100% for that. I'm 100,000% for that. If you are moving, if you're saying, hey, terminate copyright, go put these characters in public domain, that means Marvel will continue to make those things, because you and I can't make a 150 million budget Iron Man movie. We can't. I don't have $150 million. And I do not have the necessary contacts with the necessary CG artists and actors, etc. But that means that someone else could make, let's say, a short film of Iron Man, sell it on YouTube or wherever, $2-3 a pop, 10 out, whatever the fuck price is. Oh, it's a 50-minute short film, but it's their film. They get to make money off of it. They, like, all their work gets to get compensated. I'm down for that. I get to write an X-Men story and I can publish that shit and make a couple dollars. Shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely down for that. But I'm just saying, if they are just, like, I guess it really 100% depends on what they want out of this. If they just want to terminate copyrights and they become public domain, I'm with it. 100%, 100,000% with it. If they want to take, like, if they want to take over the copyright and if they and their intent is to create media, comic books, comic books, movies, cartoons, whatever, cool. I'm cool with that 100%. If their goal is to just revert the rights and they have no intention of making movies, they have no intention of making cartoons, comic books, etc., go fuck yourself. That's my position on this subject. Yeah, that's it. That's going to be it for this one. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.